Okay. Alright, so guys, assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Brother Farid from MYR. We're doing another quick PowerPoint. This is another one of our major topics, and this is the effects of pornography. And although most of the PowerPoint, I guess, will be focusing on the scientific effects of it, we also, of course, want to throw in some an Islamic perspective. So, we have myself, who will be presenting, I guess, majority of the PowerPoint, but we also have Brother Asan, who actually created the PowerPoint. And, shout out to him and Brother Mohsin for creating the PowerPoint, and Sister Sara for doing the visuals. So basically, the event's just going to be focusing on everything from like small tips. There's a lot, like, you guys, majority of the stuff you guys will see, you guys will probably think is common sense. But you always learn something new from these PowerPoints and these presentations. Even just like, everything you go to, any lecture, even a khutbah, anything that you go to, you'll find out something new. We'll try to share as much unique tips. There's some tips, like, you hear about pornography addiction that you might have not heard before. There's some techniques to avoid it that you never thought about. Like, I've heard someone talk about how one good way to get out of these addictions is to, if your taqwa is strong and you're not going to break a promise to Allah, then what someone might do, if they're really at that stage where they're super addicted, they might, say like basically say a qasam to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, promise that I will never indulge in this act again. So that's one great tip that we'll begin with. And apart from that, we'll try to share more. So moving on to the factors that trigger pornography use, there's four major ones we have written here. The first one might be social circles. So, society today, like, it's pretty much become a norm. It's not something that's frowned upon really in a lot of community, especially for young people. I would say anyone under 30, it's not something that's really frowned upon no more, maybe in your friend circles, whereas that might not have been the case, and it might not be the case depending on your environment. So apart from that, peer pressure, that could be one of them. Like, you're growing up and, your friends might kind of pressure you to actually even, surprisingly, to even watch pornography. That's even something that people are pressuring other people to nowadays. The biggest one, in my opinion, is probably ease of access. So technology has made it so accessible, whereas even if you go back like maybe 10 to 15 years, it was not that easy. And, there a lot of websites might have been, paid prescriptions, but now you have thousands and thousands, literally, videos free of charge. Within maybe 3 to 4 or 5 clicks, you're going through multiple videos, pictures, photographs, and it's crazy, like, the way it's become and how accessible it's become for pornography. You have, in the last couple lectures that I've probably attended in the last 10 years, you have imams that discuss certain actors that were actually part of this industry that are now have become like basically speakers, and they're actually speaking against the same industry that was putting the bread on their table because they've seen the effects of it. That's how crazy it's gotten. And apart from that, boredom, like, which is pretty much the simplest one. A lot of the times now it's become so accessible and it's become such an addiction that when people are bored and they have some time on their hands, they'll indulge in watching pornography, whether it's videos, photos, etc. So these are four just major factors that might trigger one to indulge in pornography. So that's one thing we wanted to start off with. All right, let's. All right, so just quickly, just to get somebody to speak, what do you guys see on your screen right now? Does it say common effects of porn? Is that what's on the screen right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. So basically, there's a lot of text on the screen. We just want to quickly go over it. To begin with, we have addiction. So pornography is very easy to get hooked to, and it's very difficult to abandon it. And the more one sees, basically, the more the person really desires and wants. And also, the more you indulge in it, of course, is making your heart blacker and blacker. So it's removing not only the remembrance of Allah, but also, like, whereas one might have had more taqwa when they were younger, and were actually fearful to watch this stuff and felt more guilt because of how often they might be indulging in it. They might not feel ways anymore about it. And then, of course, obviously, when one is watching this, they might start doing other things, like, of course, it's on the screen, like masturbation, etc. And then, of course, there's so some of these cases might be minor and some of them are extreme. So depending on whoever's watching this, whoever will watch it on our YouTube, some of this stuff might seem ridiculous to you because, you might not have experienced it. but then to others, it might be something that's like they know about it already from time. Apart from that low self-esteem, because of course these videos are not showing you anything average or below. It's pretty much showing you, actors that look a certain way. They're showing you all types of stuff that's pretty much hard to even imitate when you're actually, you're married, you have your own, you have a spouse, and so what might occur is low self-esteem, constant like a guilty conscience, lack of confidence, and etc. Or if one's struggling to find a spouse, it might cause self-isolation. And yeah, we have, so our short video, I guess we'll just begin with it now. It's just like a minute or two, unless Asim, do you want to add anything with this PowerPoint, or you think we should move to the video?
Don't really have much to add, besides the fact that the effects of pornography go right across, on just like things like our moods and our feelings. Essentially, it is a tool of boredom, and with the easy access, that is why it's even more alarming, and it's even more frequent amongst the younger generation. That's all the points that were added. But yeah, we can go to the video. Video would inshallah give a good perspective of it.
Right, okay.
Sexual tastes vary from person to person, but with the current pornography epidemic, as some call it, one has to wonder how exactly this may affect our desires and perception of sexuality. Moreover, how does it affect our sex lives? Pornography constitutes about 25% of all search engine requests and is the fourth most common reason people give for going on the internet. And while it may seem to simply facilitate an instinctual sexual response linked to millions of years of evolution, the truth is, pornography has dynamically changed over time, ultimately molding our tastes and desires. The not-so-shocking truth is that pornography has profound consequences for the brain and acts in many ways like a drug. With prolonged exposure, your tolerance is increased, and many often find themselves addicted. Though it's not a physical substance, it leads to the same general loss of control, the compulsiveness to seek out the activity despite negative consequences, and withdrawal when it goes away, much like that of gambling or running, for example. The issue is that continued exposure can cause long-term or even lifelong neuroplastic change in the brain. Dopamine is released as a reward whenever we accomplish something, whether it be eating to sustain life or sexual activity to produce future life. And this dopamine consolidates neural connections in order to drive us to perform the same activity in the future. In other words, it alters and forms the brain cells to motivate certain actions. It rewires your brain. The National Institutes of Health measure drug addictiveness by testing rats. The rat is trained to press a button in order to get a drug, and the harder it works indicates how addictive the substance is. It turns out that the more addictive a drug is, the more dopamine we see released. And while there is, unfortunately, no rat porn that we can give to them, we do know that dopamine is also released during sexual excitement, which pornography plays right into. The more time you spend doing it, the more dopamine gets released, which reinforces the behavior and makes you not only desire it in the future, but require it. And as you begin to imagine these images away from the computer or while having sex, they become reinforced. Furthermore, each orgasm releases even more dopamine, which consolidates the connections made during the session. It's a feedback loop that becomes harder to escape. And just like a drug, your tolerance for visual stimulation has now compounded, making it more difficult to be turned on by reality. Pornography addiction can often lead to finding your mate less attractive. The good news is, it doesn't have to be permanent. Usually when people understand the mechanism and realize it's affecting their relationships, they can stop. The brain is often described as a use it or lose it system because the neural connections you stimulate grow stronger and desire to be activated, while the ones you ignore become weakened. Much like your muscles, which, if sitting still all day, itch for activity, but after prolonged non-use, they become complacent. Luckily, because of this use it or lose it brain, the same neuroplastic system that proliferates these habits can also be used to acquire healthier ones.
So Asim can expand on this better. I'm just going to quickly go over it. But the brain effects caused by pornography are definitely dangerous and toxic. And of course, like we mentioned, they're strongly addictive. And this is something that is out there. The information is out there, but it's not something that people are choosing to absorb. They're not choosing to focus on it. And they're definitely not, of course, taking it as seriously as drugs like cocaine and heroin, whereas the addiction is still there. And you're literally flooding your brain with dopamine, like Brother Asim was just talking about. And of course, everyone's experience is different, but at the end of the day, everybody can admit that pornography is artificial, and you're doing something to the brain which is not natural. And this is something that was not there even a short while ago, as big as it is today in 2020. And then so the other stuff is really out of my field. But Brother Hassan, I'll let you talk about the rest.
Yeah, sure. So just like the video was explaining, is that the porn is artificial. It's not something natural. It's something that's going to stimulate your brain over and over again. But here's the deal: when you get overloaded on something, you want something more than that. You want something more extreme in that. For example, if you are playing a sport and you are at level one, you once you get to a level where you are an expert or you have achieved enough to feel that dopamine, you feel expert at it, you want more of it. Same thing happens with pornography, is that at a certain level, your dopamine is overloaded. And this is where it becomes dangerous, because now they're in search of that dopamine where they can get the same cascade of chemicals that can be emitted to their body. The newfound pathway will now outcompete other connections. For example, if you find a hobby like biking as enjoyable, but now your brain's neurons are outcompeting the pornography one. So you're gonna try to achieve. You're gonna go to a pathway which is more enjoyable, more artificial, which is pornography. This is the reason why real relationships and productivity tend to decrease during this period. Whereas relationships and productivity takes time to build on it. They take time, they take patience. It is not instantly gratifying. Pornography, on the other hand, is easily accessible. You can easily search up you can go on Google and you can easily search up any term you want. You can get almost any content you want online and you will have it right away. Whereas opposed to building up relationship and having intimate relationship, having intimate contact takes time and patience. And this is why the brain, when it gets rewired, this is where it gets dangerous, where your brain cannot comprehend that. It cannot reach that level through natural means. So that is why real relationships and productivity tend to decrease.
Right. Okay, Jazakallah khair, Brother Hassan. Was that everything? You're good, bro?
Yeah, we can go ahead. So go to the next slide.
Cool. Yeah, so basically just like Brother Hassan was saying, and to expand, porn can potentially change the brain and lay down new neuronal pathways in the brain, and is great at basically making these long lasting. And so basically the stimulation that you're causing upon your brain is just something that's not really natural, and basically the level will build up until the whole response becomes numb. And in order for you to keep reaching new and new levels, you'll keep pushing yourself to that limit. And so basically that leads to a lot more problems, and it's basically addiction. At the end of the day, just to summarize it, it's just addiction, and it's a scary type of addiction, which isn't really being talked about, because like I mentioned in the beginning, this is something that's become super normalized, and that's why we chose to make this our second topic after marijuana and alcohol. This would probably be number 2 on our list for something that's major and something that's destructive to society, and has become such a norm in today's society. And we like to focus on our Muslim youth first, but inshallah, we like to focus on everyone, the whole society as a whole, and build each other up. Nobody's perfect, not anybody in our organization or outside of it, but the least we can do is start the discussion on these topics that aren't really being discussed, whether in masajids or schools and etc. So I'm just going to move on from this slide, unless Hassan, are you good, or did you want to add something?
No, I'm good.
All right. So basically, the next slide is focusing on relationships and just digging deep into them. So porn can make real relationships seem more difficult and less satisfying. And this is something that somebody that's even indulging in this for the last 5-10 years, they can easily tell you that if you have a conversation with them, that they're not easily aroused anymore. They're feeling dissatisfied. Apart from that, their self-esteem is major impacted, and the scary part about it is people might not even realize until it's time for them to be with somebody and get married and be with the spouse, and then you realize the effects that it had on you. That's the scary part. It's kind of like anything. Like, for example, we probably know a lot of people that indulged in drugs growing up and never took it seriously. I know I did. I know a lot of people that indulged in drugs growing up, and they didn't feel ways about it because nothing was happening short term. But the long-term effects is something that's always scary. Porn users always report less love and more prone to separation, divorce, and these are statistics that I'm not going to dig deep into, but you guys can look up. And as a person or a consumer finds himself further down the cycle, isolation can be a major problem. So when you start going through certain issues from pornography addiction, that's what leads to other issues like isolation. And we all know what isolation can lead to multiple problems. When someone's having issues mentally and they're struggling and they isolate themselves and they don't talk about it and don't talk about their addiction. And of course, with something like this, it's not easy to talk about. You might not even, most people won't discuss this with their closest friends. So that's why stuff like this is very scary to get into. So on the next slide, Asan, do you see the next slide? The science have to say. Do you see that? What science? Asan?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So today's physicians basically say that watching stimulating scenes destroys the heart and nervous system. Because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has programmed the brain direct humans to sexual intercourse and for reproduction. And so this is something, like we mentioned, is not something natural. It's something that it's an industry that has gotten big in the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years. And, anytime before that, stuff like this was, far-fetched. It wasn't something that was major. And so basically, if people deviate from the program and purpose, they will suffer from many psychological and physiological side effects. And of course, some, as discussed, boredom, desensitization, habituation, distorted perception, and of course, addiction, aggression, and of course, it can lead to abuse. All these addictions can lead to abuse. So there's a short verse in the Quran here that's quite common discussed in Friday's sermons. And so just to go over the translation, it's, surely God enjoins justice, kindness, and the doing of good to kith and kin, and he forbids all that is shameful, indecent, evil, rebellious, and oppressive. And so this is basically where we get deep down into like the deen aspect of indulging in something that's indecent. So the next slide really focuses on these three terms. So fosha, the next one is al-munkar, and al-baghi. So not to get too deep into them, but basically you guys can see the translations on the screen. Fosha would be more like shamelessness. Munkar is something that's more like detestable, gross, atrocious, and al-baghi is like something that is like wrong, you're transgressing, and etc. So these are just three terms that we decided that it's important for everybody to know about. And when you're indulging in pornography, of course you're doing something that's immoral. And it's something that's wrong. And something what we don't focus on is that when you look at pornography and you're looking at someone's genitals and their private area, that in itself is sorry, don't mind my cat meowing, but that in itself is a major sin. And that's something that back in the day, that's something that wasn't happening all that often, because this is something that's rapidly grown due to people indulging in these videos and etc. And so because it's become so easy, we're noticing now that it's getting more and more, it's easier, it's more accessible for people to basically indulge in this major sin. Asim, do you want to maybe expand on some of these points? Or you have something to say, or you good?
No, I think you explained it pretty well. We can move forward.
Okay, bro, sounds good. So like this is something that I just discussed. I guess I should have went on to this slide, but of course it is something that is a major sin, and basically it's forbidden, and even you'll find evidences in the Quran for it. And people, of course, are justifying their addiction by telling themselves that they're not physically indulging in something that's zina, but of course it's something that you're still doing something that's a major sin. It's just become way more easier. Sorry, just give me a minute, guys. Yeah, okay, we'll move on to the so Asan, do you mind could you maybe read so we have some Quran verses here, we're just going to quickly go over them and just to give it more of a deen aspect, but Asan, could you maybe read the first 2 or 3?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let me read something that might be more relatable. Say to them, O Muhammad, do not even draw near things shameful, be they open or secret. As we know, pornography is seen in secret. No one likes to admit they watch it, but any of the people that do indulge in it, they do it in secret. They do it where they're isolated, they're secluded. Another one is enjoin believing men to restrain their gaze and guard their private parts. That is pure for them. Surely Allah is well aware of all what they do. How many times are we told to restrain our gaze to ensure that we are not, our gazes are not going where it's forbidden? And then what is it? Allah has written for Adam's son his share of adultery, which he commits inevitably. The adultery of the eyes is the sight to gaze at a forbidden thing. The adultery of the tongue is the talk, and the inner self wishes. Here, if you want to pay attention, is that the adultery of the eyes. A lot of times we think adultery is the zina is the adultery, but in fact we can commit adultery with our eyes. We can commit adultery with our tongue. You know, we can commit adultery with our ears as well. The eyes are the major thing here. Where if you are indulging in pornography, just remember this is the zina of the eyes, equal to the sin of the zina, one of the major sins.
Right, exactly. And of course, just to like expand on what I was saying, we just become so numb to these things that we don't feel ways about it, just like I said before. And so, you know, we have to like, you know, we know ever since we're kids, we're told that we're going to have to answer for our eyes, our fingers, everything, every part of our body will be, you know, a witness. So it's really like we've just become so numb to it that people will not care. You'll have friends, you'll have cousins you'll try to talk to. And when it comes to any of these things, you know, right now we're discussing pornography, but even the stuff we discussed before, like intoxicants, etc. In the last, you know, in the last couple of decades, it's become so normalized to indulge in these things, and that's what we as an organization hope to tackle. And so that's what we're really trying to do is start the conversation at least about these things, and get people on board that might themselves be struggling with these addictions and you know all these sins, and you know get on board with us, and so we can help each other build each other up, you know. So inshallah we'll
No,
move on. Sorry, what were you saying, Asim?
no, I just wanted to make one more point. If you can go back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just one slide back.
Yeah.
When Allah talks about it in Quran, He also admits that the man, like Adam's son, will make this mistake. They will, you know, we are not angels, so we will be committing those sins. But the important point is that are we seeking forgiveness or not? Are we paving a pathway back to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala or not? This is where it really becomes important, because not so much more about, you know, you have committed an act and now you should feel guilty. And sometimes we feel that we're so hopeless and lost that we shouldn't even go back. But instead, it's the act of forgiveness and repentance that we should always be aiming for. We should remember from day one is that we're not angels. We are going to be committing sins. You know, regarding major or minor sins, we're all going to be committing for it. No one is perfect, but the goal on this world is to pave a path for forgiveness and repentance, and to make sure that we are fulfilling our obligations to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala.
Jazakallah khair, bro. Okay, let's move on to. All right, so in conclusion, just to go over like the major points we discussed, is watching pornography is of course haram. Going near it is discouraged, of course, and continuing with this habit can lead to serious health issues, but more so like psychological effects. And this is something that people are experiencing, but they're not like, you know, you can go on the internet, like just simply go on YouTube and click on like all the speeches that people, and these are people that aren't even Muslim, subhanAllah, they're not Muslim, and they're talking about this addiction, and talking about how it's literally changing your brain, it's changing the gray matter in your brain, and it's rewiring your brain, and it's messing everybody up. But the industry is so big and it's thriving so much, just like the pharmaceutical industry. It's a huge industry, and so you know it's regulated, and it's not going to be something easy that people can start to end, you know. Like, okay, so that's basically a nice point. We cannot control the industry, but we can control ourselves. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a degree of power and control that we should choose to use for good. And you know, we all slip up, we all mess up, but as long as we get back on the track, and we as Muslims, I'm not sure if everybody watching is a Muslim, but those of us that are Muslim, or whatever religion we practice, you know, whether we're Christian, etc., we try to strive for greatness and for good, and try to cleanse ourselves from all these addictions and all the filth that today's society has incorporated into us, into our systems, into our minds, and etc. We're just going to wrap up, but I just wanted to see if anybody from any of the execs wanted to add something into anything we said. Like if any of you guys want to add something before we wrap up, you guys have the mic. Like anyone? All right, it's all good.
Hey, Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I wanted to say that was a great presentation and there was a lot of insight. The one point I wanted to add on is that for obvious reasons through the presentation, I think everyone understands why pornography is a negative thing and can lead to a lot of negativity in your life. But just from an external view, even if you're not someone who engages in pornography, just the immorality of the access of pornography and the dark side of pornography is something a lot of people forget. So, a lot of times these actors who are in these pornographies, they're actually not even willingly or consenting to these videos. A lot of the times they're being forced or they do it because they're being intimidated to do it. And then there's the whole other side of child pornography as well. So overall, as a Muslim and just as a human being, honestly, there should be a sense of like your moral compass kind of going off, thinking, okay, this is very, very wrong. And there's a lot of petitions out there, and there's a lot of information on this, which I highly recommend everyone look up. And please sign some of those petitions because there's some people doing a lot of great work to put an end to like that kind of pornography videos of children and whatnot. So yeah, that's what I want to add.
Right. Jazakallah khair for the insights, Sister Nurusha. Yeah, those are great points. Pretty much everything we discussed in those points. That's pretty much how we would like to summarize, but let's see what we... Okay, so basically, if you are a victim of this, and this is something you're struggling with, there are many ways to basically get help. Of course, the first and foremost and the biggest help is making sincere dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is our creator and he knows us best, better than he's closer to us than our jugular veins. And ask Allah to give you the strength. Apart from that, try to spend your time wisely. We only really have 12 or less hours in a day that we're up and about. So try to be more productive, be reading books, exercising, etc., discovering new hobbies, especially during the quarantine time. It's scary because our time can either be used very poorly or very wisely. Avoid watching certain things that are going to push you to indulge in that. Like I know people that are avoiding alcohol and drugs, and if they do something that's slightly going to push them towards that, they'll try to avoid those gatherings and stuff like that. So you need to understand yourself. Everybody's different. Some people can sit in a room full of alcoholics just drinking, and they won't drink a sip. But there's other people that, there might be one person in a room with a bottle, and they come in the room and they're pushed to do that. Apart from that, like the biggest one, and this is something that I encourage people to do more, is seek a specialist or consult a specialist. And this is really for anything, whether it's pornography addiction or drug addiction, any mental health issues. I think we, even as Muslims, need to normalize seeking therapy and getting help when you need it. Especially because we need to start treating these addictions and these mental health issues like depression, anxiety, etc., as actual diseases, because that's what they are. They're not emotions. So that's pretty much it. Apart from that, like we discussed earlier, if you would like to join our organization, it's a brotherhood/sisterhood, and we try to achieve more and more. Inshallah, our next couple of PowerPoints, we'll try to discuss topics that are not as extreme. So we'll try to cover more, maybe about mental health and etc. And barakallahu fikum to the whole team that's really put in work. And we want to start having more, but these were two major topics. Of course, we want to do more down the road, and we want to put more content out there. Whether it's on our YouTube channel, whether it's our new short film coming out about mental health issues within the Muslim community and all that. So I hope that this, was slight benefit. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I know we didn't really share too many tips on how to avoid it, apart from these ones we just discussed. But in the beginning, I mentioned one that that was pretty good. Is like you can swear to Allah that you'll never do something again if your taqwa is strong. And so that'll kind of just trap you to not even indulge in any intoxicants, or whether it's pornography, etc. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of us, for the whole ummah, and for even our friends. We want to encourage our friends that aren't Muslim to get away from these things, because it's not just, Muslims that we're looking out for, but we want to look out for the whole community and bring each other up. So Jazakallah khair to everybody that tuned in.
Sorry, Farid.
Yeah. What's
Sorry,
up?
I think Asila Khan wanted to make a point, so
Okay.
Please,
Okay, sure.
Please do so.
All right, our sister, do you want to share something? Sister, start speaking again. I can't really hear you. Yeah, we can hear you, but it's pretty faint. Try coming closer to the mic.
Oh, I think she left the meeting. I think she's gonna rejoin.
Okay, inshallah, we'll wait. Is there any about Asin, where did she ask did she post a comment in the notes?
Yeah,
No, she's back.
What was her question? Like, did she type it?
no, she was just asking to make a point as well.
Okay. Just give me a minute, guys. I'm gonna quickly do something.
Sister Asila, can you try saying something so we can just test out if it's working?
Did she join back?
Yeah, she's.
Sister Sila, maybe try typing your point into the board, and brother, or one of the brothers and sisters can read it out. Did anybody in the meantime have any question that they wanted to ask? So Austin, just keep an eye on the comment board and see if she types it.
Yeah, she's gonna type it.
Okay. Did anybody in the meantime have any? Sorry, somebody say something. Austin, is something there yet in the board?
No, she's typing it. She's in the progress.
Oh, okay. Say she's.
In the meantime, does anyone have any questions or concerns or comments they would like to give us to us? I guess I can share a story while Sister Sila is typing. There's a firm that was operating for pornography in Florida, and they were recruiting underage girls and telling them that whatever pictures and videos they record for a high amount of money, it won't be released to the public. And well, it was not only being released to the public, it was being sent to various people around the world for degrading acts. And it was a huge lawsuit, it was a huge case for every one of the girls because their families got exposed, they themselves got exposed, and it led to a lot of mental health issues. Those guys, the whole firm got busted, and those guys are still on the run. They're on FBI's top 10 watch list for now. So it's not an industry that anyone else want to get involved with. A lot of time people come out and say the industry is regulated and it has a lot of benefits to it, but alhamdulillah, it has absolutely no benefit, and may Allah save us from that industry.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the whole thing about the morality of it, right? Like a lot of people dissociate themselves as, oh, I'm just watching it, it's actors and like it's professional or whatnot. And a lot of people also have this like mindset that like somehow porn is educational, which is like because of like some of the points you guys brought up. What people end up forgetting is that a lot of the stuff that's out there is actually very it wasn't a lot of it is blackmail, or a lot of it is just videos that was taken without the person's consent. So you got to ask yourself, like, am I going to support an industry that is ruining people's lives? Like aside from even like the aspect of you seeking pleasure in it, but like just it being completely wrong, and like whether you stand by that or not,
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. And Sister Asila actually made a great point that we should have added into our. We actually did cover, but not enough. It's true is that when an individual admits about this problem, it can lead to being ashamed. It can lead to being judged. It can lead to having a lot of low self-esteem. and it's really where your ego hits, where, you know, with anyone, do they really want to admit their weaknesses? Especially this one. This
Right.
one is looked down upon. It's looked as disgusting in the public, even though there's research that a lot of people consume it. It's looked down upon. No one wants to discuss it in the public as well. But it's true, you know, we have to act as an individual. If someone comes to us, if we are, say, facing that problem, we are willing to let go of our ego, and we're not willing to, you know, we are willing to say that we don't want to judge you. Instead, we want to help you. A lot of spouses, you know, are committing this action as well. And inshallah, I think the generation is changing, where sister has said that one of these spouses, instead of shaming them, or instead of judging them, instead of, you know, putting them down, instead wants to help that person, that individual, move over, like, you know, overcome that addiction and start a better path.
Right. Right. Exactly. 100%. Jazakallah khair for all your guys' comments. That was great. And inshallah, if you guys want to, you know, we'd love to have more and more of these discussions. So it'd be great if you guys join the organization. If you yourself feel like you need some type of mentoring, our mentoring program is open, led by Sister Narusha and Brother Wasi. And so, you know, you guys can enroll yourselves in that. And if you're looking to have like great programs, whether it's halaqas or you know, accountability programs, etc. So we're available to help you guys. Nothing is free of charge. And inshallah, we can build each other up as a ummah. So jazakallah khair to everybody.
Sorry. Yeah, we have one really good question, and a really complex question that I am not at least qualified to answer, but I will give my thought into it.
Okay, what's the question?
So the question is, if I am getting to know a girl for marriage and want to know if she's virgin or if she's committed zina, how do I ask about it in a respectful way, since people are supposed to hide their sins?
From any time that I've seen that question being asked, it is something I'm not like, again, you might want to consult a sheikh about that. But basically, like in my, even in the opinions that I've heard and in my personal opinion, I'm just with the whole opinion about not really discussing your past sins. So if somebody is looking for marriage, it's kind of like you're going into a fresh start with somebody, and nobody's slate is clean, whether it's your slate or your spouse's slate. So it's really something that me personally, you know, I probably wouldn't. That's a conversation that I probably wouldn't even get into when you're getting into marriage. But I mean, if you're close with the person and you feel like they're comfortable and you want to discuss that with them, then I would say, I mean, in my personal opinion, this is just me, I would say, like, try to have that conversation in a respectful manner with them in private. But me personally, like I said, to begin with, I think nobody's slate is clean, and that's something that shouldn't be a requirement for marriage. If somebody wants to chime in on that, they can, but me personally, that's my opinion. I wouldn't consider that like a fard, like somebody has to tell you their past sin.
I actually want to add on to that, because I do agree with what Fareed is mentioning, that in the end of the day, it's up to the person whether they want to disclose that information to them, because they are supposed to keep their sins a secret, right? So, but if it is important to you and like that is something that you want, my tip on how to ask in a respectful way would be not ask it directly and say, hey, so are you a virgin? But instead maybe make a list of things that are very important to you and say, so this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who is maybe, for example, very active, or someone who has memorized Quran or and whatnot. And in that you can slide in, I would also like someone who hasn't had previous relations, right? And so to that, the sister, or to that, you can just add on and say, if you think we're compatible from seeing this, then we can continue talking. If not, then let me know. And in that way, the sister isn't directly telling you that she isn't a virgin, but through that, you can see that maybe through one of the points, you guys aren't compatible. So it kind of helps her kind of keep her sins a secret, and also you know about whether it would be compatible between you two.
Right, 100%. And one great tip to, if you really want someone that, you know, you really don't want them to have a, you know, past relationship, stuff like that, one of the biggest tips seems to be just to get married young, whenever you can, as soon as you can. And so not to delay it maybe till like your 30s, you know, and so on. So that's why, you know, getting married is young is key, because at the end of the day, you know, it can come with a lot of benefits. The only reason we're rushing, by the way, guys, is because Google Meets unfortunately has 1 hour limit. So we have about maybe 3 to 4 minutes left. Hassan, is there another question on there? Or
Yeah, so there's one last question. I guess we can finish it off from that. Is
okay.
that is the Islamic ruling same for cartoon pornography? And I guess I can start it off. Is that if there is indecency involved, if there is something that is forbidden in Islam, it generally carries the rule over for it. So although cartoons are not real people, they're fictional characters. At the same time, they are still carrying those indecency characteristics that stem from pornography, and therefore, yes, the Islamic ruling will still apply. Does anyone else
Yeah,
have any
100%.
opinion?
Yeah, 100%. I agree because at the end of the day, yeah, you're not looking at a physical person's genitals and their private area, but you're still looking at something haram. You're still indulging in something haram. So it's really like asking, is it bad to do coke versus meth? At the end of the day, you're still putting a drug into your system. So that's my personal take on it.
Yeah. And Islamically, like the ruling is that anything that leads to zina is haram, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
even if it's something cartoon or even if it's audio or something, I don't know, but it's of a arousal nature, then I would say that it's something to be watchful of.
yeah.
So that does include some of those scenes that you see in movies or shows, like you mentioned in your Seek Help slide.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Growing up, we were always told by imams and so on that every sin, like don't steal, don't kill. It just says don't do the sin, but with zina, it's like don't even think about going close to it. So that's how that's how much frowned upon zina is, and unfortunately, it's something that, like I said, it's become normalized. So Hassan, are we good? Is there anything else on there? Are we good?
No, that's all good for now.
Okay, okay.
We hope that you guys all enjoyed the presentation and enjoyed our efforts. And inshallah, we'll have more content coming through.
Yeah, inshallah, guys. So we'll wrap it up there. May Allah bless everybody on the call and the whole ummah, and keep everybody in your du'as. And jazakallah khair, barakallahu fikum, and to everybody, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And Mohsin, you can stop recording now.